Well, good morning again, friends. Welcome back to another Firepit conversation. Richard here, and I'm just so thankful to have all of you back again this week and being able to share some of my thoughts and some of my processing as I go through the week. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful morning out. The sun's coming up over my left shoulder here, and you might see the rays come across on the screen on the camera as it begins to reflect. So listen to that. Sounds like summer already out here. So I don't know, I'm in really good spirits. I just finished a good run this morning, and it's just good getting out and getting the blood pumping and everything to start the day off, and it just helps get the day going right and energized for the day. Still cooling down a little bit even after showering, so if you see any sweat, just you know why. So anyway, again, I'm just in really good spirits this week, and this morning as a lead into this weekend for a lot of good reason. You'll understand why as we begin to talk here. But you know, there's a lot of craziness going on in this world, in this country, rioting, people trying to cause anarchy, all kinds of stuff. You know what? We get enough of that watching the news. We get enough of it looking at social media every day. And I could spend forever talking about that, but I'm not going to. I don't want to dwell on that. I want to dwell on something really good and something that's that I think is important. And so that's where I'm going to go today. So I sit here this morning as I get ready and anticipate this weekend as my bride Amber and we get to celebrate our 23rd anniversary. 23 years, and it's amazing and awesome to think about that and think about how the journey that we've been on together over these last 23 years. Having met so young and having when we were in the middle of high school, and just almost knowing, very early on, that we knew we wanted to start a life together, that we knew we wanted to have a family together, that we knew we wanted to be married. So it wasn't only 6 months after we started dating. It was towards the end of my junior year of high school. 6 months after the start of my senior year, I proposed to her. And we had just begun having conversations about what marriage would look like, and then 10 days after my high school graduation, we're getting married. And it was just such a wild time and wild experience, because we definitely dealt with a lot of criticism, a lot of naysayers, people that spoke against us. In many ways, rightfully so. We had, and I definitely had many conversations. I remember sitting down several times with my dad at a local Waffle House, just having conversations about it. First, when I was gonna propose to her, and then as we began to draw closer, he just really wanted to get an understanding of where I was coming from, and definitely share his heart, because he wasn't 100% in agreement that it should happen that early, although he knew my heart for her. So I don't blame him for that, but we definitely dealt with criticism. We even had a betting pool that was against us at the place that we worked, that bet how long our marriage would last, and I think the longest was 6 months. And here we are, two young kids, hearing that, and we're like, we just blew it off, whatever. We knew we were going to dive headfirst into it, all that. And it's been an amazing adventure. I've spent a lot of time these last few days really processing, especially those early years, of what that has looked like, what we've gone through together, from even the simplest of times, even though things seemed hard, how simple things used to be when our kids were real small, and all of that, and even to now, and just how much our marriage has flourished, how much it's grown, how much we have grown in love with one another. The squirrel's fighting to my left here. if you hear that. And so it's wild to know that, and to see just the hand of God at work in the midst of all that. And you know what's cool, friends, is that 23 years of marriage. For the first, I would say 17 years, God wasn't a centerpiece of our marriage. He wasn't. And it was only by his grace, though, that we made it through all of that time. That was that 17 years. And we had grown to a point where we knew from the very beginning how much we wanted to fight for each other, how much we wanted our marriage to really work. And at first it was this, I think in some essence in this, we wanted to make sure we proved people wrong, that we could last, that we were going to be married for a long period of time, for life, and that we could make it work. And but in the midst of all that, we just continued to grow to one another. One of the things that we really learned to do early on is really communicate and talk with one another. And I'll be honest, Amber had to teach me how to communicate. She had to really teach me how to talk and bring me out, because I wasn't much of a communicator. I kept a lot of things bottled up inside of me, and my own woundedness is just the way I operated. I was very quiet in a lot of ways, and still am in many social situations. Even though I love being around people, I don't talk unless I really need to, unless I have really something to say a lot of the time. So that's just kind of the way I am, in the way I've operated. And even early on, getting words out of me and getting me to share what was on my mind or on my heart or anything was something she had to push for and fight for. So, but as I grew into that, it was something that I definitely had to work on with me, and she helped draw that out of me. It really helped us to flourish, because there was nothing that we would keep from one another. There was nothing that we wanted to hide from each other. We wanted to make sure we knew each other's hearts. We knew what was going on in our minds. We didn't want to keep secrets from one another in any way, shape, or form. And it's just wild to see, again, in those 17 years before I came to faith and before we really started walking with God, of how much He really pulled us through all that. And I look at it as this preparation for the life that we're moving into now in this season. These last 5 years of really walking with the Lord, and we're going on 6 years, and how that's really helped us to flourish in our marriage, and how we've grown tighter and tighter together, and the love that just continues to emanate between us. I mean, even to this day, I can just sit there and just look at her, and every time I look at her, I'm just falling in love with her all over again. It's just so thankful to be married to that woman. And friends, and it's no secret that marriage isn't always easy. It's not always sunshine and roses. There's always difficulty. There's things we have to fight through. I don't care who you are, what marriage it is. It's just a nature of who we are, because what we're doing, what we've brought together, is two very broken people that are bringing together all of their struggles, all of their baggage, all of their wounds, and trying to make that work together. It's wild. One of the books that Amber and I really got drawn to in the last couple years was the book called Love and War, written by John and Stacey Eldridge. And I'm going to share a few things from that this morning as I process through all this. One of the things that John says is that, of course, marriage is hard. For heaven's sake, bring together a man and a woman, two creatures who think, act, and feel so differently you would think they come from separate solar systems, and ask them to get along for the rest of their lives under the same roof. This is like taking Cinderella and Huck Finn, tossing them in a submarine and closing the hatch. What do you think would happen? And that's the truth. That's really the truth, because you're two very different individuals trying to make things work and trying to live out a life together as one. And it's a wild adventure for every marriage, and I would say for many, there's often struggles that happen that get in the way of all that. We allow certain things in this life to get in the way of our marriages working, and I've seen so many, and even and we've walked in this as well, where there's confusion, there's misunderstanding, there's things that we don't know about each other, or don't like about the other individual, or whatnot, or fights begin, and we've seen so many marriages dissolve over the years for things that, I'll be honest, from my perspective, should never cause marriage to happen. One of the things, or cause a marriage to fall apart. I would venture to say that for most that end in divorce, there are exceptions, especially where there's violence in the middle of it, or whatnot, and many marriages that have fallen apart for one reason, or people drift away. It's because they've made divorce an option. When things got hard, when things got tough, divorce became an option for them. And if you make that an option, it becomes the easy escape. And I speak to that honestly, and it's something that we refuse to walk into. We refuse that direction. We have refused that direction, and not that we've ever been in trouble or of our marriage actually ending, but it was something we knew from the very beginning we weren't going to make an option for us. We wanted this whole thing to work. And John writes that I'll wager that 90% of the confusion, misunderstanding, struggle, and disappointment in marriage is due to the fact we don't understand what God is up to. So how often do we sit there and think, there's so many things that are up against our marriage, that we're fighting against. We're dealing with financial trouble where, for the last 8 months for me, it was dealing with not being out of work, right? For 8 months, and uncertain of what God was doing. But we took a stance. We knew from the very beginning that God was up to something, that we were looking to Him to guide us into where we're going. But had we been in the place we were now 6, 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know how we would have fought through that together. I don't know that we would have fought through it together. I don't know. Because we're just in a different mindset, a different place. The way we've come to love one another and encourage one another through this, it's become this kind of shared adventure, right? Where no matter what we contend with, or what gets thrown our way, where we know that we're in this together, right? And so when you face struggle, when you face difficulty in your marriage, no matter what the situation is, ask yourself what is God up to in this? Maybe ask God, what are you up to in this? What are you trying to show me? What are you doing? How are you training me through this, God? There's always something going on. There's always movement happening. There's always growth and training going on in the midst of our marriage. But we had to be willing to ask Him those things and seek that out. And the same is true when it comes to our marriages. It's not just in our individual lives, but in our marriages. Because, friends, one of the things that is an absolute certainty is that the enemy of our hearts, the evil one, Satan, hates our marriage. He wants to attack. And your marriage too, if you're married, he wants to get after that. He wants to get in the middle of that. He wants to put a wedge between you to separate what God has created, what God has brought together. So knowing that there's always going to be circumstances that have the potential to be a wedge between you, to pull you apart. but there's always something. There's always growth to be happening in that. There's always a way God can use that to bring the two of you out stronger together. Again, it's this kind of shared adventure in life that we begin to walk through. And I'm going to share one more thing that comes out of this book. And he says that we share in the adventure when we help our spouse not to lose heart. Encouragement has got to be one of the greatest offerings of true companionship. You, better than anyone, know that your mate's story. You, better than anyone, know your mate's story, and you know where the enemy likes to stick it to them. You can see when they are down, and your words of encouragement can lift them up. Like a bridge over troubled water, two are better than one. If one falls down, his friend can pick him up. And that's from Ecclesiastes 4:10. Talk about your lives. Pray for one another. Encourage one another. Even though you may spend your 9 to 5 engaged in different places, this will help you feel like you are sharing life and not just sheets. So friends, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to have had these years, and even more now, a bride, a wife that has been a part of this shared adventure with me. Yeah, I'm bragging a little bit, but I want to say that this is something that's important for marriage. We walk through. We've been through a lot of ups and downs over the years, where we've either struggled financially or we've just had a lot of uncertainty in what life was going, how career was going, and all that. Wife used to be very much of a worrier. She comes from a long line of worriers. So I used to have to encourage her through that. And in these last many months, these last 8 months, I was walking through a season of complete uncertainty. And there were days I had days where I'd be really down on myself. I was angry at myself. I was angry for the situation that we were dealing with, of not being able to provide the way I felt I should be able to for my family, of not fulfilling that responsibility. There was a lot of that going on within me, and more so. But when those days came, there was Amber right there, encouraging me, loving on me, speaking words of love and encouragement right into my heart. She helped pick me up through all this and helped her keep me reoriented back to what was important, back to seeking what God was up to. Because that's what I was so desperately trying to keep myself oriented in that light. And then there were days where it felt like things were just falling apart internally. But she kept me going, and it's drawn me not just closer to her, it's really drawn me closer to her, I feel like, and drawn our marriage closer in a lot of ways, more and more. And I'm so thankful and blessed to have that beautiful woman as my bride. But it's also drawn me even closer to God, because she's helped to keep me in a place where, and it's reminded me each day that no matter what, that I have to continue seeking after His heart in all of this, in every situation that we're dealing with. Glorify Him and know that He is up to something in the midst of all that. In the midst of all that struggle, God was using all of that. He can continue to train me and grow me. And that's the same thing He's doing in each of your hearts each day, even in the hardest of times, even in the things we're dealing with and seeing right now. How is God going to use and train you up through all that, through what you're seeing? So that's really where I want to go today, friends. I just look forward to celebrating with my bride this weekend. I'm just so love that beautiful woman and thankful that she's with me. And Amber, when you see this, I just love you, and happy 23rd anniversary. I look forward to our time together when we celebrate our life, and look forward to many more years together. So friends, just if you're dealing with any struggle in your marriage, just keep heart. Know that God is up to something good in the midst of all that. He is always there. And he just wants you and your spouse to just continue to draw closer together and closer to him. Bring him in the middle of that. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken, and he wants to be in the center of that. Bring him into the middle of it. And I promise you to help grow you both stronger in the midst of everything. So friends, thank you again for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you back next time on another Firepit Conversation. Take care, friends, and God bless.